All right. Well, welcome everybody to Steve Cooper's podcast for aspiring real estate investors. In each episode, we connect with seasoned investors and industry subject matter experts that are eager to share their story, their tips, and lessons learned with all of us. So today, I'm super excited because for Steve Cooper's podcast number 20, I have the profound pleasure of speaking with a real estate investor, a coach, a notable management veteran with 9 years tenure at Canadian National. His real estate investment journey started in Quebec and expanded into Ontario and then Alberta. And he's got a focus now on producing multifamily or income producing multifamily properties. In 2023, he founded Triple Harbour Capital, a mutual fund trust in Alberta, where he serves as the director. He shares his expertise as a real estate acquisition coach as well. He's guiding Canadian investors towards their goals. He's currently managing $15 million in assets. He is dedicated to building sustainable generational wealth as a devoted husband and father. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to introduce fund manager, entrepreneur, real estate acquisition coach, Rodrigo Parada. Welcome, Rodrigo.
Thank you,
Did
Steve. Happy to be
before
here.
Thank you. Before we go any further, did I get anything wrong in that introduction?
No, actually, everything is on point. Thank you, Steve.
Perfect. I'm glad to hear it. I'm sure there's a lot more to your story, and you can help me understand a bit more about yourself. Why don't you tell me more about yourself and what you've been up to?
Okay, well, thanks, Steve. So, as you pointed out in the introduction, I'm basically wearing a lot of hats right now, but mainly I'm a focused real estate investor, fund manager, and also a father. So, in terms of the real estate aspect, I started investing in 2018, buying multifamily assets here in Quebec. I did probably one of the toughest JVs out there to get undergoing, which I invested with my family. So invested with my two brothers, my dad, and my wife. We've had a lot of success over the acquisitions that we did. A lot of people did during that period. But we ended up getting to the point where a lot of retail investors get to when we're buying residential assets, where our debt to income ratio was capped out, and we had to transition into the commercial space, commercial mortgages. So I ended up joining some networking groups and expanding my horizons, and that got me into investing, like you said, a bit more longer distance, getting into bigger multifamily assets, starting investing in Ontario, Northern Ontario to be exact. And then I transitioned into Alberta, and ever since then, that's primarily where my focus is right now in Canada. In a
Nice,
nutshell, that's pretty much what I've been doing on the multifamily front.
nice, nice. You restrict your investments into Canada. They're all national investments then, or are you looking?
Yes. So currently we're focused in Canada. However, I am planning on launching my investment fund in the United States. And also, I just came back from El Salvador. My mom is from El Salvador, and I'm actually looking into buying a short-term rental asset over there because it's dear to my heart.
There's a lot of focus now in El Salvador. I see it's actually with the political changes there, it's become quite attractive for investors.
Absolutely. Just the climate and the political climate, the feel of the country. I just came back from there like 2 weeks ago, and last time I was there was roughly 15 years ago. So there's definitely a change. It's very motivating going there and just seeing what's happening. And from my perspective as somebody who lives in North America, who's known about this country all his life, and seeing the positive outcome that's happening in the country. I just can't wait to put something on the market and be able to share it with as many people as I can.
Nice, nice. So you mentioned your first deal was the toughest JV out there, and that was because you were partnering with family. That must have been quite an experience for all of you. What kind of challenges did you face, and what were the challenges your family faced as they actually started thinking like investors and getting into real estate? What was it you had to overcome?
So that's a great question, Steve, because that answer has different aspects to it or different versions. I would say that the main challenge that we were facing at the time is we were basically self-taught. We weren't part of any, coaching groups or anything like that. I was listening to podcasts and reading books. So we really learned by doing, and that came with some mistakes, smaller than bigger, obviously, but that was one of the challenges. From a personal standpoint, I think that the main challenge when you're working with either family or close friends or people that know you or know of you is that you're basically facing this wall where what you're fighting against is not necessarily the knowledge and the reason that you're bringing to the table as being the leader in these transactions, but more the image that these people have of you. Because you have been something to them for all your life, and then all of a sudden you're this budgeting real estate investor that knows what he's talking about. So, especially with, brothers and my dad, it was more about, I wouldn't say necessarily convincing them, but basically showing them that there was a method to the madness and that we were going somewhere. So I think that from a personal standpoint, that's the main challenge, realizing that what you're fighting against is the image that people have of you over anything else.
Right. No, I can understand that because it's certainly one of the challenges I think we face, or maybe I face and maybe others as well, has been the acknowledgement or the willingness to share that you're stepping out on this ledge and you're going to do this. And all of the people that have known you all this time, do you have any fear of sharing this information with them? Are you actually self-conscious at all? Are you willing to say, "Hey, I'm in this, and if you want to join me, let's go. Otherwise, thanks. It's been good knowing you." Right? So, so I think that's a big challenge.
It is, and really what we're talking about right now, Steve, is the good old imposter syndrome, right? Everybody faces it, and whenever we have periods of growth, whether it's professional, social, or personal, right? You're always going to be facing this sort of internal dilemma, if I could put it that way. But I think that we owe it to ourselves and the people around us, since we're trying to do good for the people around us, to actually face it and overcome it to become a better version of ourselves.
Yeah.
So yes, I think that we all go through it.
Yeah. So, I mean, on the journey there, you started off with something small, close to home. You're now investing across the country. You live in Quebec still, yeah?
Yep.
Yeah. So what kind of mindset or challenges did you have to internalize in order to be able to set yourself up for success investing outside of that 20-mile border?
Well, that that's a very good question because I'm still trying to figure out exactly everything that had to happen for me to be able to achieve this. The initial challenge that I was facing is basically being comfortable with not knowing everything that I should be understanding and knowing at the moment, right? So, what I mean by that is there's a limit to the information that you can absorb. And also, I feel that as businesses and entrepreneurs, one of the main advantages that we have is our speed of execution. So, it's kind of counterbalancing each other, right? Like, do I need to know so much, or how fast can I move to get this done? And I was fortunate enough when these moves were happening that I had a good level of experience, but more importantly, I was surrounded by the right people so that when I was looking at an opportunity and looking at the fundamentals of real estate, I basically got to a point that I was comfortable with the risk that I was undertaking, right? So my advice or my main takeaway from this initial incursion into a different market long distance is don't be shy in asking for help and leveraging what you don't know through other people, either professionals, fellow investors, local people, local experts, so that you start building a team, ideally.
The team is key, isn't it? Team is
Yeah.
key. So, how do you know where you want to invest? I mean, so obviously the market goes in cycles. It's actually always a bit of a moving target, and you're going to use a different strategy at a different time in different places. What is your key to success in finding the right properties in the right place at the right time? The right
So
strategy.
I think that I'm going to have to go back to where I started to actually give you the full answer to that. When we were buying properties back in, let's say, 2018 to 2020, in Quebec, my JV partners and myself got incredibly comfortable looking at secondary and tertiary markets here in Quebec. Reason is that we just wanted something that was easier to get into, and it was a reflection of where we were in terms of our capital stack and the capital ready to deploy. So what ended up happening is that we did a lot of walkthroughs and walking around these smaller towns and looking at, the fundamentals of real estate. Really, at the end of the day, that's what it is, Steve. So do we have industry? Are we close to a highway? Are we close to a major transit of transportation? Do we have any municipal or provincial grants or projects that are happening here so that we can ride on that wave with our investment? And it might sound very simplistic, but that's really what it is for me. So when I started buying or looking into acquiring in Alberta, I flew out there and I drove into the town that we bought our first 38 unit in Rocky Mountain House.
Mm.
And the first thing that I noticed driving into town is that there was commercial storage around the town, right? So that was an indicator of industry. When we get into the town, I see all the big banner stores. I see banks. I see, money being spent in this country. So in this town. So my inkling at that point was basically understanding that even though the dynamics of the province were different than what I'm seeing in the East, the hub that I was getting into was the main hub for the smaller ones around it. So that gave me a bit more confidence into moving forward. And then there was a small hospital, there was a small airport. Then we saw that we had big industries that were in the area for a couple of years working on a big project. So I mean, the way that I look at it always is you got to make sure that in whatever business venture or even in general in life, you got to be able to mitigate your risk. And that is usually with the level of knowledge that you personally have or your team has, that you're able to look at a situation objectively and be like, okay, you know what? Like this might not be ideal, but in terms of a compromise and in terms of the potential outcome, I am comfortable dealing with this level of risk. So that would be it, Steve.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And now you've actually grown to the point where you got your own MFT. So that's almost a reflection of it's almost like an award or some kind of recognition and success, because you've built up your portfolio to a certain point where you're now in a position where you can take on multiple investors and distribute those funds. It's a sign of success, but also a huge responsibility comes with that, right? So as you're looking after multiple different investors' funds, how do you instill confidence in your investors that the risk is worth the investment? What's your key to that communication?
So it comes down to your investment thesis. As a fund manager, you got to be able to share your vision, share the plan, so that when you're talking to your investors, you're able to speak directly to what they're worried about before talking about potential returns, right? So I can give you actually a good example. We had our first offering that was on this 38 unit in Rocky Mountain House. It was a value add deal. It was a shorter period of time. And the way that we were able to present it to our investors was that we were buying it at 50K per door. The average in the market over there was around 115. So it's kind of hard to mess up a deal when you're buying it so cheap on the dollar, right? But then there were the other indicators that I was telling you. So we were able to present the opportunity to our investors so that they understood what they were getting into, but also that they understood the potential upside. However, the one that we're doing right now is a brand new 24-unit building in Camrose that we're buying directly from the builder, and it's a totally different play, because being a new build and also understanding the financing structure behind it, this is more of a capital preservation play, as opposed to a quick turnaround bird type of deal, refi in 12 to 24 months, and you get your initial investment back and you keep your equity in the deal. So I think that at the end of the day, as with the responsibility that we have in our business and also being fund managers, it's very important to be talking to your investors, understanding what they're looking for, understanding what they're comfortable with. So you're not trying to sell something that is not what they're looking for. That's my answer to that.
Oh, that's actually spot on. It's important, really important to understand what your investors are after and make sure that your acquisition aligns with their investment strategy. Otherwise, they're going to be coming knocking on your door saying, "What are we doing?" Yeah,
Well, that's it. And the way that we envision at Triple Harbor our relationship with our investors, it's more of a, let's call it a family office type of play because these people trusted in us, right? There's an element of not just involvement, but there's confidence in our team, in our investment thesis, in our way of doing things. So the only way that we can give that back is obviously with some solid investments, but also by operating in a way that we work with in full transparency, but also that we're proactively sharing the information that we're seeing so that we're all learning and growing as potential investors or by building our wealth. And that's the approach that we take in every single project that we're doing.
right. Rodrigo, so you're also a coach. So I guess the question I'd like to actually ask you about this is then so what you're in your approach to coaching, you've got a new investor that comes to you and you want to help this person achieve their goals. Um, you've got we've got we all come from different places into this and we come with varying experience. But if you wanted to take somebody that was new into real estate investing and help guide them on their journey to success, acquiring their first, say, 20 units, what would you be talking? What would your approach be, and what would you be saying to these investors? How do you go through that?
So my initial approach with, let's say, somebody who's just starting out is making sure that we focus on the mindset. And I don't want to go into the cliche of talk about mindset and all this hubba stuff, but you got to focus on what you have been learning and you got to learn to unlearn. Because if you're going to be investing in real estate, it's not a get rich quick scheme, it's more of a long-term play. And we are in a society today where everything is instant gratification, and you got to learn to love delayed gratification to be able to have the level of success that you're aspiring to in real estate. That's my personal opinion. So initially, when I have a new student that's starting out, I ask more questions about, okay, well, what are your objectives? What's your long-term vision? Where are you right now in this country? Which market do you have access to? What are the capital resources that you know you have accessible to you? And then we start to focus a bit more on the technical or knowledge side of things. Because we spoke about it a bit earlier about the imposter syndrome. Everybody has it. But I find that one of the best approaches to beating this imposter syndrome is to raise up your level of knowledge so that you don't feel like a fake in those conversations. You actually get to know what you're talking about, but also you're able to listen to newfound information and get a better grasp of what it means. So for somebody who's new and starting out, I would say get a good look, an objective look at where you are and what you're trying to achieve, and then position yourself within your circle of influence as to what you can bring to other people, right? We mentioned the team earlier. Well, real estate is a team sport.
Yeah.
And as a leader or somebody who's in a team, you will only be as good as your team. So by focusing on that initially and understanding that's what we're facing, we're able to make decisions from day one to make the whole transition easier into your first acquisition.
Perfect, perfect. Um, Rodrigo, did you imagine you would be a real estate coach when you started out?
No, no. And honestly, that's my own version of the imposter syndrome because as I was doing my projects and I was sharing with people and basically understanding that the coaching aspect was happening organically, I was still struggling with this newfound identity that I was building, basically as a real estate coach. And it was only through fellow investors and friends that I have here in my local market that were like, you know what, you should try it out. You actually have a lot of value that you can bring to people. And then it got me thinking that when I was younger, I was playing team sports. I was a captain in my soccer team. So that's the thing also with coaching and leadership. You're called to it, right? It happens, and it's up to you to decide whether you want to do it or not. And that's what happened to me. So no, I never in a million years, sorry, thought that I was going to be a real estate acquisition coach when I started out. No.
Did you tap into your experience in management prior to real estate? So, I mean, I know that my role right now, where in my career, basically involves creating the leaders that are going to replace me, right? I'm actually helping people learn their leadership skills and learn to understand their strengths so that they can actually help me move on into what I want to do, right? So, I feel like coaching is a very similar thing in real estate where you're now helping people learn their skills and learn the confidence to be able to move forward. Did you find that you were skilled as a coach as a consequence of your management experience prior, or was it something that scared the heck out of you, but you did it anyhow? How did you get there?
So 100%. I got to give credit to what I've done in the past, professionally speaking, because when I was working in the railroading industry, I was supervising roughly 50 unionized employees, and we were responsible for traffic from, let's say, Winnipeg to Halifax. And the thing that you understand by dealing in a unionized world is that there's a different way of approaching management because the compensation is not the same as a regular job. So you got to find tools and ways of managing to motivate your troops and to complete the objective, right? So I learned a few things through my 9 years doing that. And it's also something that I'm now adapting in my coaching style because everybody is different. But I think that deep down, every single human being wants to achieve good things. So it's understanding how you can tap into that and work with that so that somebody has the opportunity to actually thrive,
Mhm.
right? In whatever they're doing. And it's the same thing with building companies and teams and putting the players around you. Like everybody's got to have their own chair, they got to be in the right chair, but more importantly, they got to be in a position where they can grow as a human being because that's how you create this feeling of belonging in a team.
It's magic. You know what I do actually fills my cup. I tell people this all the time that with the work we do, the industry I'm in, and the people I work with, actually inspire me, and I want to go to work every day. And I celebrate in their successes. And it's so good to see you in this coaching role, able to help others succeed in theirs. So this is awesome. Um, when you started out with your initial JV, you must have had some vision, some goal, something in mind. You said you wanted to achieve. Um, I'd like to understand a little bit about your why and how it's grown from that, that first buy to where you are now. What has changed in the things that motivate you, and what has changed in the person that you've become?
Oof. Okay, so that's the that's the deep question, Steve. So what is my why? My why is I want to impact the people around me with as much uh, positive thoughts and outcomes in life that I've been fortunate enough to be exposed to. And when I did this exercise of understanding my why, I basically got to a point that I realized that the reason why this was driving me was because of the models that I had around me, whether it's my grandparents immigrating to Canada with their own specific history of why they had to leave their country and doing what needed to be done to provide for their family. Now, I'm a father, I have two daughters. Today's world is way different than what it was 20 years ago, and it's going to be very different from what it's going to be in 20 years. So my job is to create these environments for these little human beings that I have at home so that they can also thrive and achieve big things and get a sense of fulfillment out of life. So I'd say that what motivates me and is my North Star is this idea that I'm in a position that I can do a lot of good to a lot of people. I'm able to impact, but with a positive outcome, the people around me, and that's what keeps me going. Because, we mentioned, I think, prior to the recording starting, that like I still house hack. I live in a duplex. My brother lives upstairs. I'm not motivated necessarily, as weird as it sounds, by monetary gains. I'm all about the freedom that I have, and where I want to position myself in the long run is I want to be able to invest in people and their passions,
Mm.
because I'm having everything that I want, that I wanted right now. I keep on joking with my wife that my ideal job is to be a crossing guard at my kid's school, and that's true. So
I
that
love it.
that
That's brilliant.
actually so that actually is an indication or reflection of how I'm thinking about what motivates me. Like if I've been given so much and I have the opportunity to impact the people around me, then let's make sure that this impact is going to be a long-lasting one and it's all for the positive of the people around me.
Nice, nice. So what's next for Rodrigo?
What's next? I'd say, if I got to keep a bit corporate and professional, I want my different funds to manage over $100 million in the next 2 to 3 years, ideally. Personally, I want to become a crossing guard, like I just said. But joking aside, I'd like to be able to provide a life for my family where we can transition from being in Canada and also in potentially a warmer climate, and like pay ourselves to go and look at our properties across the world. But more importantly, I'd say that I just want to do good. At the end of the day, that's what motivates me. I'm not intending on changing that aspect of me. I think that what drives me is this idea and this belief that I can impact the world with a positive outcome, and that's what I'm focused on. That's it.
Awesome. Well, here's to making a positive outcome. Thank you very much, Rodrigo. It's been a real pleasure getting to know you. That's all, folks.